A looming shadow, the peril of a China-Taiwan conflict. The Taiwan Strait stands as a potential flashpoint in international relations. This narrow body of water separating Taiwan from mainland China has been a site of tension for decades. The geopolitical stakes are incredibly high and the world watches with bated breath. The Taiwan Strait stands as a potential flashpoint in international relations. A conflict between China and Taiwan is not merely a regional concern. It represents a significant threat to global peace and security. The international community is deeply invested in maintaining stability in this region. A conflict between China and Taiwan is not merely a regional concern. The potential for military engagement could draw in neighboring countries and even global superpowers, escalating the situation to unprecedented levels. The strategic importance of the Taiwan Strait cannot be overstated. It represents a significant threat to global peace and security. The United Nations and other international bodies have repeatedly called for dialogue and peaceful resolution. Diplomatic efforts are ongoing, but the path to peace is fraught with challenges. The potential human cost is immeasurable. Millions could be displaced, and the humanitarian crisis would be staggering. The impact on civilians caught in the crossfire would be devastating. The world has seen the horrors of war, and another conflict would only add to the suffering. The economic and political ramifications would reverberate across the globe, trade routes would be disrupted, markets would crash, and economies would suffer. The interconnected nature of the global economy means that no country would be immune to the fallout. Understanding the dynamics of this hypothetical conflict is crucial. Military analysts and strategists are constantly evaluating the situation, preparing for various scenarios. The complexity of the conflict requires a deep understanding of both military and political factors. It allows us to grasp the enormity of what's at stake and underscores the need for preventative measures. Peaceful protests and diplomatic efforts are essential in averting a crisis. The world must come together to ensure that the Taiwan Strait remains a place of peace rather than conflict. China's calculated onslaught, cyber warfare, Pacific dominance, and missile barrages. In the modern era of warfare, the battlefield has expanded beyond the physical realm. Cyber warfare, strategic dominance in key regions, and advanced missile technology are now pivotal components of military strategy. In a hypothetical conflict, China's strategy would likely involve a multi-pronged assault. This would not be a simple, straightforward attack, but a complex, coordinated effort involving various branches of the military working in unison. The goal would be to overwhelm the adversary on multiple fronts, making it difficult for them to mount an effective defense. Cyber warfare would be the tip of the spear. Chinese cyber units, highly trained and well-equipped, would launch sophisticated attacks aimed at disrupting the enemy's digital infrastructure. These cyber soldiers would work tirelessly to infiltrate networks, steal sensitive information, and create chaos within the enemy's command and control systems. Chinese cyber units would aim to cripple critical U.S. infrastructure. This would include attacks on power grids, which could lead to widespread blackouts and communication networks, which are essential for coordinating military and civilian responses. By targeting these key systems, China would seek to sow confusion and hinder the U.S.'s ability to respond effectively. Targets would include power grids, communication networks, and military command systems. The objective would be to create a situation where the U.S. is unable to effectively communicate or coordinate its defense efforts, thereby giving China a significant strategic advantage. Simultaneously, China would move to secure the Pacific theater. This region is of immense strategic importance, and control over it would provide China with a significant advantage. By deploying naval and air forces, China would aim to establish dominance over key maritime routes and military installations. This would involve neutralizing U.S. bases in Japan and potentially South Korea. These bases are critical for the U.S.'s ability to project power in the region, and their neutralization would significantly weaken the U.S.'s strategic position. China would likely use a combination of cyber attacks, missile strikes, and conventional military operations to achieve this goal. With the U.S. on the back foot, China could then unleash a massive missile barrage. This would be designed to further degrade the U.S.'s military capabilities and create a sense of inevitability about China's dominance. The sheer volume and precision of these missile strikes would be intended to overwhelm the U.S.'s defensive systems. DF-26 and DF-16 missiles would target U.S. assets in the region. These missiles are capable of striking with great accuracy and would be used to target key military installations, supply depots, and other critical infrastructure. The goal would be to cripple the US's ability to sustain a prolonged conflict. More concerningly, DF-27 hypersonic missiles could strike as far as Hawaii and even the US mainland. These missiles travel at incredibly high speeds, making them difficult to intercept. Their use would represent a significant escalation, potentially bringing the conflict to the US's doorstep and forcing a re-evaluation of the US's strategic priorities. The American bastion: missile defense and naval defiance. Faced with a Chinese offensive, the US would respond with a combination of missile defense and naval power. The US Missile Defense Network, including ground-based interceptors GB-44, would be activated. These systems would attempt to intercept incoming Chinese missiles. However, the sheer volume of fire would pose a significant challenge. At sea, the US Navy, though outnumbered, would engage the Chinese fleet. Strategic maneuvering and coordinated attacks would be essential in mitigating potential losses. The island fortress: Taiwan's resolute defense. Taiwan, under the leadership of President Tsai Ing-wen, would not be a passive actor in this conflict. The island nation would leverage its defensive capabilities. Taipei would be heavily fortified. Troops would be deployed along likely landing beaches, natural barriers would be utilized, sea mines would be strategically placed. Taiwan's goal would be to inflict maximum casualties and buy time for international assistance. A world embroiled international alliances and escalation. In an increasingly interconnected world, the ripple effects of any major conflict are felt far and wide. The alliances and rivalries that shape our global landscape play a crucial role in determining the course of such events. A conflict of this magnitude would inevitably draw in international actors. Diplomatic channels would be abuzz with activity, as nations scramble to protect their interests and support their allies. The stakes are high, and the decisions made in these moments could alter the course of history. NATO members, particularly the United Kingdom, Canada, and European nations, would be at the forefront of these discussions. Their commitment to collective defense and mutual support would be tested as they navigate the complexities of modern warfare and international diplomacy. These nations would likely provide military support to the United States, deploying troops, aircraft, and naval forces to strategic locations. Joint military exercises and coordinated strategies would become the norm as they prepare for potential escalation. Japan and Australia, key US allies in the region, would also be compelled to act. Their strategic positions in the Asia-Pacific make them vital players in any conflict involving the United States. These nations would likely increase their military readiness, conducting joint operations and sharing intelligence to ensure a coordinated response. The bonds of these alliances would be put to the test as they face the challenges of a rapidly evolving conflict. China, on the other hand, would be a significant player on the opposing side. With its growing military capabilities and strategic ambitions, China would seek to counterbalance US influence and assert its own power in the region. China might find support from nations wary of US hegemony. Countries with strained relations with the United States could see this as an opportunity to challenge the existing global order and align themselves with China. The conflict would escalate into a global power struggle, with nations around the world taking sides. The geopolitical landscape would be reshaped as alliances are tested and new partnerships are formed. The potential for miscalculation and unintended consequences would increase exponentially. Diplomatic efforts would be crucial in preventing the conflict from spiraling out of control, but the path to peace would be fraught with challenges and uncertainties. Economic upheaval, the staggering costs of conflict. The economic costs of a China-Taiwan conflict would be staggering. Estimates suggest a potential loss of $10 trillion in global GDP. China's economy, heavily reliant on trade, would contract significantly. Taiwan's economy, highly integrated into global supply chains, would be devastated. The US too would experience significant economic hardship. The conflict would trigger a global recession. Global trade in peril, disruptions and domino effects. Beyond immediate economic costs, the conflict would disrupt global trade. The Taiwan Strait is a critical shipping lane. Its closure would snarl supply chains worldwide. Semiconductors, a vital component in countless products, are primarily manufactured in Taiwan. Shortages would cripple industries from electronics to automobiles. The conflict would expose the fragility of globalized trade networks. Regional tremors. Navigating the geopolitical aftershocks. The geopolitical consequences of a China-Taiwan conflict would be profound. The regional security environment would be irrevocably altered. Countries in Southeast Asia would be forced to choose sides. The credibility of U.S. security guarantees would be called into question. China's actions would likely embolden other authoritarian regimes. The conflict would usher in an era of heightened tensions and mistrust. Averting the abyss. The urgency of preparedness and cooperation. The potential consequences of a China-Taiwan conflict are too dire to ignore. Preparedness is paramount. The U.S. and its allies must bolster their military capabilities in the region. Economic contingencies must be developed to mitigate potential disruptions. Diplomatic efforts must focus on de-escalation and confidence-building measures. International cooperation is essential. The stakes are simply too high for anything less than a unified and resolute response. Gap 3S, economic fallout and diplomatic imperatives. A prolonged conflict between China and the U.S. would have far-reaching economic impacts. Trade disruptions could cripple supply chains, leading to shortages and inflated costs for everyday goods. Sanctions imposed by both sides could further strain global markets, affecting everything from technology to agriculture. The resulting instability would likely trigger significant financial volatility, impacting stock markets and currencies worldwide. The potential economic fallout underscores the critical importance of diplomatic efforts. Negotiations and dialogue are essential to mitigate these risks. By prioritizing diplomacy, both nations can work towards de-escalation and find pathways to peaceful resolution. The global economy depends on it. The stakes are enormous, and the urgency for diplomatic solutions cannot be overstated. Gap 3S. The world watches closely, hoping for a peaceful resolution. The economic stability of nations and the livelihoods of billions hang in the balance. It is a shared responsibility to navigate these turbulent waters with wisdom and foresight. Gap 2S. If you found this video insightful, please like, share, and subscribe for more content.